There are thousands of plugins available to digital workstations. The result of this variety is that the plugins that are installed differ greatly from system to system. Therefore, when we employ a plugin that significantly contributes to a track's sound, we want to provide a permanent record of that sound. The wet-dry option refers to furnishing choices of both a dry, unprocessed audio signal and a processed or wet signal. Preparing these tracks is common practice when providing a session that will be transferred to another operator or system. This is also a great way to reduce the processing power needed to run the session. In this example, we have an electric piano that, with plugins, has been turned into more of a spacey synth sound. But the actual recorded audio on the track is just a dry electric piano sound. Here's the sound that's been created. It only sounds that way because the signal passes through the plugins before it gets to our ears. To hear what the dry audio sounds like, we can turn off the plugins and listen again. This is the audio that is actually on the track. It's a completely different sound. As we've discussed, plugins can greatly vary from system to system. If this session were being sent to another operator for overdubs or mixing, they probably would not be able to hear the sound the way we intended it, because it's unlikely they would have the same plugins. So we need to print or bounce a wet version. This will create a permanent record of the sound that we have created. This procedure is very similar to bouncing MIDI or instrument tracks to audio, with one major difference. The plugins will need to stay active, so we'll make a new track, select a bus to use as an input, and name the track. Since the tracks are related, we use the same instrument name, but we need to add something to this new track name to indicate the difference. We chose to add a WFX to indicate with effects. Next, we will route the output of the dry track to the input of the new track and confirm that the plugins are active. Remember, the signal will go through the plugins, then through the fader, and finally through the output. So the signal that will be recorded to the wet track will already be processed. The electric piano track has not only dynamic but time-based effects, specifically a reverb and a delay. When bouncing with time-based effects such as these, we need to be sure that we will record the tail end of the signal, so we will need to let the audio record longer than the original sample, so that we don't cut off the reverb and delay running out. Once the recording is done, the plugins and settings should be documented. A great way to do this is to take screenshots of the plugin windows and store them in a folder in the documentation or notes folder, which you create in the project folder. This window displays the plugin's name and all the settings. The settings could also be saved in a plugin settings folder. There should also be some documentation in the track notes or comments section, notating which track is wet, which is dry, and which plugins were used to create the sound. Then, if you wish to keep the wet track in the mix, mute and hide the dry one. Remember to also document both these tracks on the track sheet. Now you, or the next person in the production process, has a permanent record and a choice between the sound you intended and the original sound.